Welcome to Asian Book Club, where we highlight Asian and Asian American authors. We are your hosts,
Jamae and Sabangan.
and I'm Stephen Park. And today we bring you Read 4 of Snow Globe by Soyoung Park. One thing that I stated, I think it was the first episode with the narration, is that I thought that at the time that the narrator wasn't Korean because of the way that the names were pronounced. As I was looking back at the book, she is Korean. She's Korean American, and I think I might have seen that she was adopted. It doesn't change for me the fact that the pronunciation of the names still aren't exactly what I want them to be,
Mm-hmm.
but it does kind of put something into my heart of kind of feeling for this person that they might not have grown up in the Korean literature or their parents probably not speaking Korean around them, which is the only way that I really learned how to speak Korean.
Right. And it's easier to have those pronunciations, those enunciations when you grow up with it, but it's harder when you're not surrounded by the language.
Right. And so I think, because based off of what I see through our audiobook, is that Shannon Teo is the main narrator. There's also two other narrators in there who's Greta Jung and Gina Yi. So I don't really know who is doing the main narration. It sounds like it's only one narrator.
That's what I was thinking, that there was only one narrator.
Yeah, but there are three listed. I'm assuming that the first person is at least the main narrator.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, I don't know how you fully get a sense of kind of learning the Korean language if it's not something that's kind of driven into you, or you go to the place to assimilate, or you do something so that, I mean, you kind of have to take fairly drastic measures so that you can get somewhat of a good pronunciation. Because for me, if I go to Korea based off of my size, which is not most Korean people's size, and based off of my accent, which I wouldn't think I had an accent, but being to Korea multiple times, I now know that I absolutely have a very thick American accent. So people can spot me out pretty immediately that I'm not from Korea. It's kind of nice because people like pat me on the head and be like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you for knowing some amount of Korean, even though you're American." So it kind of feels nice, but it also sucks if that's not the culture that you're built into, but your heritage and your background might be from there. Like for this person, it's from Korea.
Right. Do you wish that the narrator's pronunciation was better, or would you rather someone else from a different background who had Korean upbringing, if that makes sense?
I don't think the upbringing to me matters as much. I mean, truly, I would want this job to go to someone that's Korean or of Korean background
Mm-hmm.
because of where the story came from, the fact that the original writing was in Korean and from Korea. So I would want it to go to someone who is of Korean descent.
Right.
For me, listening to a lot of mispronunciation of different food items already and different things that are Korean, it means a lot to me that we start to learn and try to teach people how to actually speak and say different Korean words. I think even just beyond Korean, this kind of goes for a lot of different cultures. It's scary to be able to say things correctly. Like, I don't know how to speak any kind of Vietnamese or any form of words that even come close to that. So when people ask me, like, what's the name of that sandwich or what's the name of, like, we had that egg crepe, which is like
Yeah.
BANHCEO with like probably some enunciation somewhere in there or like the little lines above the letters.
Right. Yes, like the accents.
Yeah, and I'm never going to be able to say that. I don't have the tongue for it, and I wouldn't want to butcher it, which is why I'm so afraid of doing that. Even in Tagalog, like I'm scared to say certain words. Like I joke around about, like the word liar, and I cannot like it's such a hard sound to say that NG.
Hmm.
It's the NG sound is so hard to pronounce. I get scared to actually say that word because I don't want to mispronounce it.
For sure. And it's so hard to try to speak a language that's not your own
Right.
or to try to embody a language that you haven't grown up with.
Right. Overall, the reason I wanted to share this part was because I wanted to apologize to Shannon Teo, who I think that's who the main narrator is, or if not, then to Greta Zhang or to Gina Yi. I'm apologizing to whoever the narrator is, because actually the narration is great.
It
The
is.
storytelling part is great. It's just the pronunciations of the names don't exactly match how I would assume that they're written in Hangul. So that's just me apologizing. But let's see what Jamae has to share for our recommendation for the week.
On that note, I am going to apologize ahead of time if I mispronounce these different nations, but I appreciate the work from this artist. And so, our recommendation for the week is Crystal Worrell. Crystal Worrell is a Tlingit Athabascan Yupik Filipino artist in Alaska and is the co-owner of Trickster Company. She works in printmaking, painting, and public art, exploring the relationships and bonds between her people, the land, and the animals. What I appreciate most is that her work is widespread. She doesn't only do paintings on canvas or digital work, but her work is seen on snowboards. You can also see her work on some Alaskan airline planes and on murals as well in the community. You can learn more about her work through her website at crystalworrell.com. That's crystalworrl.com and find her on Instagram at crystalworrell.
Yep, and Crystal World is our recommendation for the week. All right, so fourth read of Snow Globe by Soyoung Park. This time we have read pages 241 through 313 on the physical copy, and chapter 27, A Substitute for the Substitute, through 34, The Lovely Girls Next Door.
Mm-hmm.
What did we learn from our reads prior to this one?
As a recap, Chobahm starts to settle into her life as Haeri and her role as weathercaster. However, the supposed real quote-unquote Haeri reaches out and ends up tricking her. We leave off with Chobahm outside of Snow Globe at the retirees' village under the care of Cha Hyang.
Yep, and this time around, it's fairly brief. It seemingly doesn't go very far, but we learn a lot in the process.
Right. What I'd like to say, and what I said before we started recording, was that not a lot happens in this section, but what happens is a lot.
Right. So the story that we're involved in, just from a broad aspect, is that Chobam is now working with Cha Hyang, who is the sister of Director Cha,
Mm-hmm.
and they're starting to devise a plan so that they can expose this whole heady conspiracy that's been going on for years, like pretty much since the character or the people of Hedi was born.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into the process of everything that's happened. So, the last place that we left off previous to this read was Peserin taking over Chobam's role in Snow Globe as Hedi. What then evolves from here is that Chayoung ends up taking Chobam to this person that works in a factory. Doesn't seem like she is of importance until Chobam looks directly at her and just sees herself within this character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like that mirror scene all over again of noticing that this person looks just like Chobam.
Right. Like you said, they're looking into a mirror, but they're like identical twins, even though they weren't born, quote unquote, from the same parents,
Right. And this is where we start to get that revolution of what's actually happening.
which is revealed by Cha Hyang. Cha Hyang only has a small portion of it, but what we know, or at least what Cha Hyang knows, is that these heris were handmade or human made.
Right. It's all within a direction of the plot where they're trying to build up the popularity of Sanghi. So what they did is behind closed doors, they created multiple inseminated eggs with the same mother and father.
Mm-hmm. Which was Go Sang-hee and Yi Oh-hyun.
Yep. And so they use these inseminated eggs and have this weird party with massages that knocks out these women, and then they inseminate them and send them off on their ways.
Right. Which reminds me so much of the documentary on Netflix called Our Father, which is essentially the same thing. These women are inseminated with the same person's sample.
I did not watch this documentary. I have no idea what it is, and it sounds very gross.
Probably shouldn't watch it if you're squeamish or if you don't want to learn something gross.
Did the women also get knocked out in this?
They didn't get knocked out, but they thought they were being given actual samples from different men, not the same person.
Oh, this is the one about them going to a fertility clinic.
Yes.
Yeah. There's also a story about some doctor who does inseminations, and I think he has like 100 kids now because instead of giving women different sperm, he would give them his own sperm.
That's the same person.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not good.
Nope, not at all.
So in this case, the whole idea was that they wanted to create this character Haeri and they wanted backups. One of the reasons why is that these eggs were genetically modified to create a character that could be so loved. So
Hmm.
physical attributes, characteristics that people would find attractive or something that would be alluring, they put onto this Haeri character. And knowing that genetic modification could lead to possible outcomes of, I don't know, death even, they ended up creating multiple clones, I guess, is the
Yeah.
closest thing to it. They created multiple clones that would create backups and the ability to continue the role of Hetty in the case that something bad would happen.
And in addition to the genetically modified children, they're also given to these different couples because they think that the nurture aspect is going to change or possibly make them better Hetties.
Right. So this is a true to life experiment based in what they know as the real world.
Hmm.
And now what we're doing is rounding up all of these quote unquote headies.
Right, and for the purpose of trying to expose the truth.
Yep. And the first one is Myung So Myung, who they discover at that factory. And she seems very willing to go with them. She seems gung ho for the plan and seems like she could be a leader type of person that's going to help them out as they go through this journey.
Hmm. And not only is she willing to go, but she's willing to go with force. Like
Right.
she's technically a gun toting individual.
Right. She's very ready for a fight.
Yes.
The next one that we see is Shin Shine, who comes from a lot different kind of background and upbringing. She seems very separated from her family. We see how this insemination process and this experiment has affected this family's lives.
Mhm.
It has caused a separation between the parents, and I don't think it's a divorce because they're still living in the same household. But the father believes that the mother had cheated on him because she had this immaculate conception kind of thing.
Either immaculate conception or she just looked different.
Right. Shinshine, though, is very willing to go because of how bad her life is.
Hmm.
She lives in a house, and I think they said 3 rooms with like 12 people or something.
Yeah.
So she is extremely ready to try to get out of that. She's kind of in it for the money and the reparations, which I don't know if that's going to come, but she's very willing to kind of out this whole process so that she can get a different life.
Yes, because she doesn't like. I mean, I couldn't really live with 5 people in one home, so I can't imagine living with 12.
You did live with 5 people in one home.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that it was hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't imagine how much harder it would be to be living with 12.
Yeah, doubling that size.
Yes.
We are taken through this process within gathering all the Heddies that involves meeting someone who is ironically a fan of Hetty, but doesn't realize that she's kind of destroying the character of Hetty by taking all these people to Snow Globe.
Mm-hmm.
We are reintroduced to Ongi as a train conductor, which is kind of his dream job. And Chobam kind of finds his peace in knowing that her family is doing better, but then a little bit of guilt in how well she was doing compared to the family.
Mm-hmm.
And then we find one other character who I think is such a fascinating character and kind of brings a strong, lighthearted situation to the grimness of what's probably inevitably about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That is Hwang Sana.
Right, and Hwang Sana was the sole survivor of one of the biannual championships.
Right. She got shot 5 times, still survived. There was no winner deemed from that championship because they didn't end up killing this prisoner,
Yeah.
and she was allowed to be released.
Mm-hmm. And not only just released, but given this important role as a truck driver for the goods between Snow Globe and the retirees' village.
Right. The weird thing about this truck driving thing, though, is in the first drive that she does in taking Chobahm and Cha Hyang, there's that like beeping with inside the vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
and very nonchalantly, very casually, Hwang Sana talks about how the beeping is a bomb.
Yeah.
What we later find out is that it's not a big bomb. Like in my mind, when they were talking about this event and what might happen if this bomb goes off, I was thinking what Chobam was thinking, which is it would be a massive explosion of the truck and everything with it.
Mm-hmm.
But we find out that it's different.
Yes, we find out that the bomb only affects one person, and that's Huang Sana.
Right.
And it would just stop her heart from beating.
Yeah, it's a little bomb inside of her back that blows up and then stops her heart or something.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about this character overall? Knowing that she was the sole survivor, knowing that she's this driver who's willing to risk her own life for a cause that she has no real connection to.
Right. I think that she's either ultimately brave or ultimately, what's the word? I think this character is either ultimately brave or just fearless.
Yeah, I think this character is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think unknowingly we got inputted this action star who is just very brave, like you said, and very casual about putting her life in danger and the willingness she has to help other people.
Totally. And I think part of it is that the fact that she was able to survive 5 bullets
Right.
and the entire biannual championship, I think that puts a different mindset on a person.
Yeah. I also love that her and Chaeyoung have this funny sisterly relationship between them.
Mhm.
And it's very nice to see how that relationship kind of continues to form bonds between the different headies that we're starting to encounter. That's one of the things that I really loved from this read. How light it was for such a serious part of what we're planning to expect.
Exactly. And it was like a little breath of air before whatever heaviness is coming at the end.
Yeah, because we see a strong sisterhood start to form. We see that brother and sister relationship reconnect and rekindle in a way that Ongi has no idea, but Chobam is able to reaffirm her decision in what she's about to do.
Exactly.
What were your thoughts on this last read of everything that's happened or how the writing was to you?
I felt like the writing was so smooth. Like we said, it felt like not a lot happened, but so much time and space was dedicated to this journey.
Right.
And I really admired the writing. Like, even though it's a translation, for some reason, this felt like the smoothest translation.
Yeah, it felt like we were taking on a journey, but that journey was kind of through these rolling hills where we saw just a ton of grass, blue skies, and there was a lot of laughter in between. But seeing that, like, Lord of the Rings, that Eye of Sauron at the end, and being like, this is what we know we're heading towards,
Mm-hmm.
but let's enjoy these moments while we get there. Let's learn about each other. Let's figure out what's going on in our lives and kind of form, like I said, the sisterhood or bond with each other.
Absolutely. And I mean, technically, they are sisters.
That's true. They very much are sisters. Did you have any other lasting thoughts for the end of this section?
For this section, the only other lasting thought that we haven't talked about is how Shinshine seems to be the most practical. Like, not only is Shinshine thinking about money, but she's thinking about what's the end goal? What are we trying to get out of this besides shock factor?
Right.
And it seems like nobody else thought about that.
Yeah. And they're starting to think about it now, which might have been the benefit of what was originally planned of separating all of these girls for different parents,
Mm-hmm.
is all three headies that we have now are very different from each other and bring something that is unique to this whole experience. We also now know that the original Hetty did pass away, so my theories aren't as valid as I once thought, but I had some of the stuff right.
I also had some of the stuff right. Although we don't have the original Hedi, we instead have this group of Hedis who are all in it for the same reason, which is to bring down Director Cha and her evil plan.
Right. And possibly even the Ebon Media Group.
Mm-hmm.
Before we go into predictions, one of the things I said in our last read was that this book is a duology. I don't know if there's a second book after this one. So one thing I know about Korean books, so if we have a longer English written story, that book is usually separated into at least two or three books when it's translated into Korean. I think the Hangul lettering is just larger, and so it just takes more space to tell the same story. I don't know if the duology is all put into this one book, which
Mm-hmm.
is Snow Globe, or if there's another sequel to this. I did try looking it up. I didn't find a second story to Snow Globe. So my thought now is that there is no second book in the English language. It's Snow Globe, the
Mm,
duology.
I see.
With that said, what are your predictions for our last read?
I predict that there's going to be hiccups along the way and they're going to struggle to find their way into Snow Globe, but they are going to be successful in infiltrating the newscast during 9 to 10.
Which is the time the control center for the news overrides the major control center,
Mm-hmm.
which was my prediction.
Yes.
Do you think anything's going to happen with Banhue and Choban?
I don't think so. I think that's too big of a story to tell in such a short section. But who knows? Maybe there might be a little spark that will lead on to a possible sequel.
Fair. What are we reading for our last and final section of Snow Globe?
For the last read, on the physical copy, we're reading pages 314 to 372. And for everyone, that's chapter 35, Friday Night Fever, through 40, A New Beginning, and the epilogue.
Yep. And so if you have any thoughts on what you're expecting to happen, if you're enjoying the book as much as we are, how can people reach out to us?
You can email us at asianbookclubpod@gmail.com or join the conversation on Instagram at asianbookclubpod.
Yep, and we have our website, which is asianbookclubpod.com, which has our bookstore where you can find books that we've read in the past, books that we recommend, and books that we plan to read in the future.
And a great way to support us is to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast.
Otherwise, make sure to be happy, be healthy, and read a book.
Ingat!
Bye.
Bye!